Anastasia Stacy Presh, a board-certified nurse coach, writer, and wellness entrepreneur who has turned her own journey through burnout and reinvention into a mission to help others thrive beyond the bedside. As co-founder of Well and Whole, Stacy empowers both individuals and healthcare organizations to prioritize holistic wellness, personal growth, and self-worth, guiding nurses and through career pivots, stress recovery, and life transitions. In our conversation, Stacy opens up about what it really takes to move from clinical practice to entrepreneurship, why coaching is a necessity, not a luxury, and how learning new languages fuels deep personal transformation. She shares honest stories about combating burnout, the powerful role of mentorship, and the cultural shifts needed to embrace true work-life balance. This episode is filled with practical wisdom about investing in oneself, overcoming limiting beliefs, and embracing self-awareness as the foundation for meaningful change. Whether you're a nurse, a healthcare leader, or anyone seeking purpose and renewal, Stacy's story is a roadmap for growing at work and in life. Welcome back to Uncharted Narratives. If you're just joining us, we're continuing our second-part conversation. Now let's continue our journey and uncover more remarkable stories and insights.
Right. Okay. I think this is a great question. And yeah, so something that I think is really important in this is, first of all, like I would ask, what was your issue and what was your expectation of coaching? Because I think that there's something about outsourcing our power and taking responsibility for our own actions. So on the one hand, we can talk about how great it is to have somebody help you dig deep and challenge you. But when we're talking about the work that we're doing, there's work that happens inside the session and there's work that happens outside the session. If I were investigating this, I would really want to know, like, what kind of action did you take outside the session? Obviously this is all going to be dependent on the goals of like our theoretical, customer who's had maybe not a good experience, but like, was their perception that the coach is going to do the work for them, or did they show up fully? Did they do the work, the inner work, both inside the sessions and outside the sessions? I think that that would be a great place to start with asking, because ultimately, no matter what, nobody can do the things for you that you want. Thinking about success of coaching and how we're measuring that and what's the outcome. But we really have to take a step back and say, like, well, what was the goal in the first place, and what was being done, and what was the expectation?
Yeah, thank you for that. And if you allow me, I want to put some details here, especially because this is common here. And the main purpose from this to give awareness, not more than promotion and sales pitch. It's more to let everyone know. If you go for the doctor and tell the doctor you have sign and symptoms, and he diagnoses you and give you a medicine, and this medicine, when you come back to home, you didn't take it.
Yeah.
Still, you
I
will
love this analogy.
have the same problem.
Yeah.
So you need to do your homework or your job in order to overcome this challenge what you have. The same apply like this. When you go for the gym, if you hire someone as a personal coach for you, and you are not working with the all instrument there, how you will build muscles. The coach will not help you to build the muscle. But when I start to believe there is misuse and overuse also, by the way, in the coaching. So sometimes I don't need coach. I need maybe mentor, someone to help me to how to move from A to B. Maybe I am clear about my objective, and I know what I want, but I don't know the technique how to do with that.
Sure.
This is where what's happened. So if someone need to hire someone or invest, you need to know, is my goals clear? What I want? It is a smart objective. I know how and when I need to achieve them, but I don't know the tool. This is something else. But to come for the coach, most of the technique, whatever the school they follow, they will help them to find their own internal soul, internal identity, to discover themselves. And that will take me for another question for you. So because you have more focus on well-being and holistic view of wellness, so why I came to coach to help me to do that wellness? I can go for yoga or can put on TV and do meditation. So what is the value from this?
Okay, so this is a great question, and I also am going to touch a little bit on what you were talking about before as I answer this, because I think it's so important to clarify this. And I can't believe we haven't come to this part of our discussion yet, but everybody's calling themselves a coach nowadays. I feel like you probably noticed that, and that's probably where this came from. So there are really big differences between coaching and mentorship, and you might work with somebody who is both a coach and a mentor. That can exist, but there's a lot of people who are really they're in a role of a mentor or a teacher or a consultant, even depending on if it's some really specific, advice, that if they offer a one-to-one service, they might be like, and I do coaching, but it's like, you're not just coaching because you're working with somebody one-to-one. Like that, these are different things. So yeah, like what is the value? And why, how is coaching different than teaching somebody or mentoring them? And, we talked a little bit about our training and where that comes from, but I think also how you ended that part of your sentence, talking about the difference between giving somebody really detailed information or advice or a plan or a roadmap versus helping somebody find answers for themselves. That is the difference between mentorship or teaching and coaching. And you think, okay, so if the answers are already inside of me, like, don't I know them? Like, yeah, why do I come to somebody if I know what I need to do? But, I think I'll go back to what I was saying before. It's like, well, how many things do we know that we need to do and we don't do them? So I think that there's kind of some different levels of this. Like maybe on the surface, we have the accountability. Some people really need to have somebody to check in with. I wouldn't say that that's the whole purpose of coaching at all, but I would say that there is a piece of knowing that you're going to have somebody to talk to about what you're going through and follow up and have yourself follow through. Some people are like, oh, I knew that I was going to talk to you, so I made sure to do XYZ, but I think that is maybe where things kind of begin. But as we go several layers deeper, showing up authentically, trusting yourself, getting over your inner critic or fears. Like I'm going to use a really tangible example for this. One of the clients that I was working with, she wanted to do a different job within nursing, but she had convinced herself that she wasn't qualified, in spite of having like 2 master's degrees, tons of leadership experience, and so this is the power of your thoughts, right? So objectively, she had like every qualification in the book, but her relationship with herself and her beliefs about what she was qualified for, and like the inner critic that was telling her, you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough, the imposter syndrome she had, like we navigated that relationship. She had such a fear of like rejection, even the idea of looking for jobs, like sent anxiety like through her body, but one of the things that we did, which again, it's going to sound super simple, but we took this big goal of a career change and broke it down really small. And one of the reasons people, I'm not going to say they can't do that. One of the reasons they don't do that is they really dismiss the power of doing something small because they think it's not going to matter. But that's the only way to start. So sometimes it is a matter of identifying, first of all, what the goal is, identifying how to break it down, also pulling out these pieces and parts of you that have prevented you from taking the action in the first place that you needed to take. Because it's never just as simple as, well, I know I need to do this, but I can't. Like there's a million reasons why we talk ourselves out of things. And most of that has to do with our self-image, our self-perception, that inner voice that we have that's usually very critical and lots of fear and doubt. So I think where coaching comes in to help people do the things that they already know they want to do, but they're afraid to do, is dismantling all of that.
Yeah, and also thank you for that. I was planning to ask you about any success story you have with your client, and
Sure,
thank you for
yeah.
doing that. And also, I will echo what you have said. There is a social impact came for us through the social media and the social status and image. Everyone see, for example, we'll take you. They see you as Stacy as the harvest season, so they not know what you did down those 10 years you are doing. Take small steps until you come back. So they compare them, or they see you in this stage, even the celebrity and public figure, they thought they can build in like this, but they don't know How does that? And with the small search in over the internet, you will find them. Most of the famous singer are in the street. They try someone to discover them, but now they become class A. So this is something need time, need resistance, need to know exactly you believe in yourself. So this is something is will not go over the night, and this is where you need to believe in that. But the pressure from outside is too hard for this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that comparing ourselves too, it's just easier than ever to do with social media, And I was talking to my sister about this with Reels, like, it's all video content everywhere, and I actually find it extremely dysregulating, even though I make a lot of Reels on Instagram. Like, I have this sort of back and forth relationship with that. But having videos where we like watch somebody cook something or make something or do something, in 5 seconds, it's like, even though we know consciously that we're like not going to go bake a cake and like, have it turn out like the picture in a matter of seconds. It's like we are so used to seeing everything done from start to finish and look beautiful and perfect, because the way that we, or educational stuff. Okay, do these 5 things and you're gonna, make $100,000, whatever. Like, all of the things that are designed to get our attention are so short, and that everything sounds like it should be so simple. And this is what we're constantly being fed. And then we think that there's like something wrong with us if we can't watch, a less than 30-second video and like figure stuff out.
Yeah, how to crack leadership. You can become a leadership within 10 days workshop. So all of those catchy and buzzword, we used to have it, and we thought everything will happen, but this is not the reality. Even though with all respect, with those workshops, they will give you the foundation, the fundamentals, but still there's, again, come back, a lot of homework. You need to do it by yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I want to take this coaching as rely on evidence base, so what scientific principle for researchers inform your coaching methodologies?
Yeah. So my training, so I'm certified through the American Holistic Nurses Association, AHNCC, Nurses Credentialing Corporation, whatever. That's a mouthful. But anyways, like the nurse coaching specialty really pulls from a foundation of nursing, therapeutic communication, psychology, positive psychology. So I think that those are kind of like the bigger domains that are within the nurse coaching specialty. And did I answer that, or do you have something more specific? Okay.
You did,
Yeah.
But feel free if you want to give more details, because it is very important to mix. This is built on based on evidence basis, and this is where we encourage everyone to go to take the certificate, then start to practice.
Yes. And I think that, something that's really important about this is like, I just remember being back in nursing school and learning about therapeutic communication. And it was like, okay, you're not supposed to agree. You're not supposed to disagree. You're not supposed to give advice. Yeah, we didn't even talk about that. Super important. You're not supposed to tell people what to do. So it was like, what's left? And I just remember thinking of that in school and like, okay, so you sit there and listen, right? And it sounds like the most basic thing ever. But when you go from just like that beginning therapeutic communication that we learn in nursing school to then learning nurse coaching and learning that there's a whole lot more where that came from, basically, then it all starts to make sense. Then you actually learn, like, how do you communicate with somebody, like motivational interviewing, I think, is a great way to sum it up. It's obviously so much more than that, but it's like, how do you help people get in touch with what's really important to them? How do you help them identify their goals? Like, how do you understand what beliefs are holding them back? So it's like there are all those tools, and then there's also the mindset that needs to shift in you, which I don't think we do a great job of having this mindset in nursing school or in healthcare in general. So it's the shift from viewing yourself as the expert to viewing the client or patient as the expert. Because I remember when I started to, to learn about this in the program I was in, and I was like, this is radical. Like people come to us in healthcare because they want to learn what they're supposed to do. How are they the expert? And that's such a closed-minded, narrow view of things. But like, that's how you feel when you are doing something like surgery. Okay, like obviously the patient's going to be the expert at surgery. But when we're talking about people wanting to make changes in their lives and do things that are important to them, it's like the only way somebody is going to do something is if it's really important to them and if they really want it. And, half the battle is helping people figure that out, because so many people do things and get themselves into situations for, like, whether it's a career path or buying a house or just the normal life trajectory that we see. So much of like the dissatisfaction people have is because they didn't follow what was important to them in the first place, and they just did what somebody else thought they should do, because we have things like pressure from society and parents and friends and people in our social circles. About, even when you asked me the question earlier, like, did your parents kind of direct you to go into healthcare or whatever? And, this pressure from all these sources is so real. So, what we're really doing in coaching is helping people to dismantle all of that. Because when you're so used to making your life decisions based off of what everybody else thinks you should do, you get really out of touch with what you want, but it always comes back up. It always comes back up, and that might look like you being burned out, having lots of dissatisfaction in your life and career, feeling really stuck, mental and physical exhaustion. Like, all of these things manifest when you are out of touch with the things that you really wanted to do in the first place.
Speaking on back for your parent and the pressure you can came from outside, so I want to discuss it with you, as you stated during your studying to be American nursing health, holistic health trainer. Down the road, there is a curriculum, and I'm not sure if you agree on all of the things and theory there, but you need to follow them to pass the exam. After that, as a coach, still do you follow all things as a playbook and take it as is, or sometimes take from here and from there what you believe and to build your character?
Yeah, you know what? I think definitely the second, because there are certain things, right? Like, as we kind of find our place with what we're doing, and like for my journey, it's shifted a lot, in terms of, like, you think you start out doing one thing and then you kind of, you realize there's so much more underneath it. But, with coaching, you would, if we're saying coaching from a purely like theoretical academic textbook standpoint, you would never give anybody any advice whatsoever, right? But like, so that may or may not really apply in the real
It's very
world, because
hard, very dry. I agree with you. It's very dry, and it's not the
like,
practical.
right. So it's like, well, but if somebody is coming to me because they really like, they want to, go through a career change or reinvent themselves, or, they're going through a life transition, they may be curious to say, like, wow, but what have you done? And even though that's not going to be the primary focus of the conversation, like, the theory of coaching would say, like, I'm not supposed to talk too much about myself or give any advice or say how to do things. Like, it should be completely directed and generated from that person. But in real life, like, you're attracting people who they want something similar to what you have, or they believe that you can help them because of what you've gone through. And so, of course, you're going to end up sharing some things like that.
Absolutely. So I would like to give some time talking about the power of self-worth. And this is where you believe in that and you inject it with your program. So please tell me more about that.
Yeah. So I think, takes me back really to the topic of burnout. And, when we think about our self-worth and like our self-image, how we see ourselves, there's not a lot of people, well, there's some, but this is another one of those things that's not immediately obvious. Like, we can be a little out of touch with our awareness of how we feel about our worth. Some people like know for sure things they do or don't feel worthy of, but this also just manifests in ways that are like a little bit sneaky. And if we want to take this back to like a very tangible work example, like not being able to say no to overtime, or, oh, but we really need you to help the team or whatever, if all of your worth is derived from your identity as a nurse and being a good nurse and being a team player, and these are what those things mean to you, right? Like where you get your self-worth, it's going to massively influence your behavior. So that's just one example, like where we can talk about a toxic environment, understaffing, people putting lots of pressure on you. But like, if you fundamentally believe that your worth is tied to being a good nurse and productivity and stuff like that, then you're going to do things that are against your best interest that will burn you out and make you think that it's the environment around you, when actually you had the power to say no, you just couldn't. It was too hard. So I think that it's really important to make that distinction, because like in our society, and it's very interesting because France is a little different than the US. Like in the US, the first thing when you meet somebody, like the first thing they ask you is like, what do you do? What do you do for work? And so I think in the US, we like super identify ourselves with our jobs. Whereas, in France, people like, don't talk about work as the primary focus of their life. If you're like at a social event, I have, friends that I'm like, oh, I'm not even exactly sure what they do. So I think that there is a dynamic there. But yeah, how your identity, how you define yourself and where you get your worth from, if it's external sources like your job, like praise and recognition, your
What is your core
salary.
value?
Yeah, exactly. But these are also things that it's like, you can't blame people for not having that awareness, because we're taught to do that. So then when you do something like leave your nursing job, you can go through an existential crisis. Or even, in business, when you are the creator of your business, you can get really attached to things even more so than maybe you were in the bedside at the hospital. I feel like that happened to me. I've gone through that transition as well. Everything just feels so personal. Having sources of worth and wait one second. Sorry. No, having that inherent worthiness is really like, it's where confidence comes from. It's where, it's where your actual balance in life comes from. It's how you decide like, oh yeah, I am worthy of taking, time for myself. Because something that's so common, like when you were, this example you brought up before, like, well, what if I just know that I need to go do some yoga to manage my stress or whatever, right? So I cannot tell you how many people both Sarah and I have had conversations with that are like, yeah, I really want to like create a morning routine or a bedtime routine, or like I know I need to be like doing some breathing exercises, or like when you just can't take time for yourself, that is a manifestation of low self-worth.
So
Sorry, my AirPods just died. Hold on. Can you still hear me okay?
yeah, I do.
Okay, I can hear you out of one ear.
Yeah, sim low battery.
Wait, hello?
I hear you. I hear you.
Okay. I'm gonna charge the other one in
Okay.
case this happens. I thought I
Yeah.
charged these.
Good
Okay.
idea. Good idea.
Okay.
So now I can understand there is a lot of characteristic knowledge and experience for the coach. So my question for you is, finding a coach is like a dating?
Yeah, I think so. People say this about coaching and they also say this about therapy. Yeah. I mean, it's just so important to have that connection with somebody. And so, yeah, I mean, everybody we've ever worked with, I've had a personal conversation with before signing up with them.
I believe so. I believe also it is dating underrated, maybe more, because when you date someone, you cannot, especially in the beginning, to speak up for everything to maintain your image. But with your coach, with your therapist, you can do and discuss anything without any filter. Yeah. So it's more, but yeah, I like this is where some coaches they have chemistry call or sync call just in the beginning for both party to make sure they are aligned together to do that. I want before end for that. Sorry. Okay, I would like before we end our episode today to touch base about more about the life in Paris. You mentioned that, and you discuss and you bring something very important, how it's used to connect and socialize in Paris. And you remind for something for me back from my culture. I never thought about it. What is this? It's this is how we used to that. So when we meet, we don't discuss usually we don't discuss anything related for professional or work. Basically, we're looking about how you feel,
Yeah.
how is your day, and we mean it because we have different language. So you have some word is reflected. Yes, how you start your day, what you are doing, how you feel, how your momentum, all those things. And when we came for the work, it's become at the end of the list. So back for Paris and the city where it's known about all the artists they live there, and the very well educated there. So how this city help you to build your approach and coaching, and also the holistic living across between the coaching, mental status, and also wellness?
Yeah. Okay, I love this question. Because I think that again, like that exactly what you just mentioned, that mindset shift, like I had realized that although I was, coaching people around this, educating them around like, detaching their identity from work, from nursing. It wasn't until I got here and I couldn't work as a nurse anymore. Or in the hospital or whatever, that I realized how much of that was still in me. So being here and having the environment be not completely focused on that, having every conversation not begin with what do you do, it's really refreshing. I think that like the French are sort of known for like having a life balance, slower meals, taking having more vacation time than Americans and using it. Yeah, I think those are all just like cultural norms that are really great to have. And then also there is a really nice like community of people here in Paris. Lots of expats I've met, but as well as, people that are French as well, that are really interested in wellness. So I've gone to several events here. I have a friend who hosts workshops. I've hosted several workshops here as well. And it's been interesting because the workshops that I've hosted here, I've done some on my own, some in collaboration with another person here, and then some in partnership with a small women's membership. So the people that I meet are mostly expats, but very few of them are in healthcare. I've met a couple of nurses that are from here. I think that it's also just kind of broadened my
Diversity in the
view.
background and experience.
Yeah. And I've met people that I share things in common with, but other things, like not just nursing or not just work. And I think it's just that it's really nice to like have that diversity. So I still feel this connection to, like identifying as a nurse coach, but then when, being here and doing workshops, like, the last workshop I did was a journaling workshop, and it was so nice.
Yeah,
And
I
it
happy
was,
with that. We connect together for days.
yeah,
I thought this will be online, so I was interesting
yeah,
to work with you on that, but
yeah,
realized
which
it
I'll
was
do
in
at
person.
some point. Yeah,
Yeah,
at some point I'll do them online. But yeah, it's just been really nice to, yeah, kind of broaden, kind of have more diverse people, more diverse group. But the thing is, I still mostly like work with and connect with women here. And what I've also realized, it's just like the same issues that so many nurses face. They're also just issues that are still very common to women, to expats, so there's an overlap of all of these things that it's nice to see, from a different perspective.
lovely, lovely. So, Stacy, at the end, I want from you, what is the biggest thing you hope our listener take away from your speech and from your podcast?
Yeah, what I think that I would really want people to take away from this is to realize that, this relationship that they have with themselves, how they see themselves, their thoughts, their mindset, you have so much more power than you think. Regardless of what's going on in your environment or your situation, you have so much more power than you think to have your boundaries, to get your life in balance, to take your life back if it feels like it's not yours right now.
Lovely, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Stacy. We learn a lot from you. There is very rich information we have discussed today. And from here also, we send our greeting for Sarah. Sarah is not with us, but all the time we discuss about Sarah. So thank you, Stacy, and looking forward to see more success and bring you again with some initiative or project to share it with us.
And thank you so much for having me.
Likewise, thank you. Bye bye.
If this episode sparked something in you, Here's how you can keep our mission alive. Subscribe to Uncharted Narratives Surdiyat. Leave us a 5-star review. It helps more amazing people discover our stories. Share an episode that moved you with a colleague or friend. Connect with me on LinkedIn and join our healthcare innovation community. Together, we're not just telling stories. Until next time, stay curious, stay passionate, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in healthcare. See you in the next episode of Uncharted Narratives Surdiyat.